I mean, no, you were saying something
Oh,
here?
yeah.
She was doubting me on local hops.
Okay.
She gets the alcohol content right, I get the hops right, we're okay.
Hey, you're a team. That's what matters. As long as the team keeps going. So. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside. Today we are in the Cornwall region of Ontario, and joining me is Andy and Karen from Rurban Brewing.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to speak with us about your brewery today, your love of craft beer, and what keeps you going during everything that's been going on.
Yeah, exactly.
You brought me some great looking beers here to try. What am I doing number one here?
Cornwall Lager, it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah. Traditional Bavarian everyday drinker. This beer started as something called Frühlingsfest, I don't know, long time ago.
Okay.
Well, we were still on the other side, so 5 years ago.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a one-off beer.
Yep, single batch, and it sold out in I don't know how many days, and so then we made it again, and then near the end of that year. Anyway, it drove an expansion around here, so we called it the Cornwall Lager because it's beloved by the local population.
As we do. A toast.
Cheers.
Cling. Oh, light malty.
Yep, just like I said, Bavarian everyday drinker.
Wow. Yeah. Super easy, super crushable.
Yep.
I had a bunch of these already. We were speaking pre-show. I've been here a bunch of times, so it's nice that you have that like consistent lager on tap whenever I'm here. So.
I think there'd be riots if we didn't.
At this point, I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. So what's the beer story? What brought you two together to create Rurban?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Karen's not going to tell any stories here today. What brought us together to create the brewery? It probably goes back to Scotland, right?
Yeah, our honeymoon.
So we were on a honeymoon in Scotland to Traquair House, the oldest inhabited house in Scotland. When we got out, there was a bunch of peacocks. Somebody who won't be mentioned hates anything that looks like it can fly, so doesn't want to be in close contact with it. So instead of going to the car, we ended up going around the side
Yeah,
of the house.
peacocks were near the car.
Yeah, the peacocks were in between us and the parking lot. I didn't mind going through them. Karen did. So we walked around the side, and lo and behold, there was a brewery from the 1800s there that was on site, open that day, and they happened to be I don't think they were brewing in there that day. Anyway, but they were sampling. So I drank what I didn't know was the Jacobite Ale at that time. Fantastic beer, loved it. When we were in every other little town in Scotland, you'd stop in a pub and we'd have something that was Scottish, and they were all wonderfully malty beers. So when we got back after our honeymoon, I said, those are great, where can you get them? And you couldn't.
Yeah.
So that's when I went, great, how do you make beer? I just happened to be a science teacher too, so when I was reading it, I'm like, oh, it's just, okay, it's biology and microbiology and some physics and some engineering, this is cool. So I started making it, and then, just skip a bunch of years and fast forward, and we're here, right?
Yeah. When did you guys originally open? I know you've been here for quite a while.
2015.
Yeah, the end of 2015.
Yeah. It says established 2013. We established the company in 2013, and then it took about 2 years to get it all together. I mean, we were both working full time.
Yeah.
So getting the funding, getting the plan together, getting the manufacturers lined up, getting the city to work with us, because Cornwall hadn't had a brewery since 1920 when the last one closed. So there's nothing on the books for anything to do with brewing, and it was a long slog to work with them to get it all together so that we could actually open. So 2 years after we started, we ended up opening here.
Yes.
Yeah, it's wild to reading basically the journey of craft beer in Canada is it was really prevalent, and then it disappeared for a while, and then things slowly started coming back, and now smaller guys back then, I live near McCausland, St. Amboise, and that was small, and now that's the big one in Quebec.
Yep.
It's crazy how much expansion in the craft beer industry there's been in the last 5 years, including the pandemic. It just keeps going and going and going.
Yep.
From the sound of it, was the city okay, we got to figure this out, but you're more than welcome to open a brewery, or is it no, we don't want drunks running around the street?
No, it was an education aspect, right? Okay, what do we do? There's no business license that applies to you guys. What do we do? That sort of thing.
Okay. Yep. So no, hey, we don't want a brewery. the area kind of welcoming?
No, oh yeah, the area's welcoming.
Very welcoming, yes.
Cornwall is a cool town. It's not high interest on a lot of niche things, but we knew that going into this, right? So I had, before opening the brewery, making sure I wanted to do this, because I had to retire from teaching to do this, was make sure that it was going to work here. So going and visiting with some other brewery owners and people that I knew in the industry and talking with them about numbers while we went out for lunch and then figuring out what it would translate like to here. So it was a fun journey.
Yeah. Awesome. I love hearing that kind of stuff. And clearly, you're an established brand, and you did survive the pandemic, which is great. A lot of people did survive the pandemic, which is great. I haven't seen many failures. I know on Quebec side, there's maybe one or two. I saw a couple on Ontario side, but there's been more opening than closing. It's wild. Yeah.
I mean, it's the hot ticket item right now, right? Everybody wants to own a brewery and open one up. So that's what people are trying to do. Pandemic-wise for us, it was just, our story was when it hit 2 years ago. We looked at each other and went, this isn't good. And so we just stopped production in here for a week until we figured out what was going on and what we were able to do. Right? Because we do Cornwall basically only. We're in a handful of places just outside of town. And so all of our bars and pubs and restaurants, our partners, closed down overnight. So we're like, okay, what's this mean? So we just ended up going back to when we first opened, we were 90% retail, about 10% tap accounts. We ended up going back to that basically, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I read a report, apparently beer sales in Ontario the last 2 years has been 85% cans and bottles. That's so rare. It's usually a lot closer to the middle. So,
exactly.
Just canning alone, like for my life, cans are just so much easier. Go to the beach, going out with the guys, playing some softball or whatever. Carrying bottles is a pain in the butt. Some kids running on a beach shatters like the bottle. No, you just can't. It's so much simpler.
Super easy.
Awesome. So besides kind of the whole Cornwall having to rewrite the rules in a sense and being like, we haven't had a brewery here in 80 years, any other kind of roadblocks, difficulties, location, just even getting this place? Because do you own or you're renting from?
Oh, no, we're renting. Yeah, this is a huge building. It's 60,000 square feet. It's got a long and storied history. It was built in 1926 and then redone in 1960. And then various owners since then, but the current owner of it is somebody that's pretty straightforward to work with, done a lot of improvements to the place. I came in here because he was saying what he was going to do for improvements and knew he was the kind of guy that when he says he's going to do it, he would do it. So it's been pretty straightforward.
Well, as you mentioned first, you were just kind of in one section, and it seems you've kind of taken over more and more of the building every couple of years, every couple of months, which is great. It's that clearly the owner sees potential in your team. And it's like, this is supporting, that's, we say time and time again, support local, support local, support local. And clearly they're about supporting local.
Oh, for sure he is.
Definitely.
Rurban's pretty unique, as you said, rural and urban. What made you decide to name it that, not, Cornwall Brewing or anything like that?
I looked at Cornwall Brewing Company. I like Rurban because it's not that easy to say, so we knew it would be, our old joke was it was its own sobriety test, but we sort of thinking the way beer's made, right? Your ingredients are grown in a rural location and often brought into an urban center to assemble into a final product. Cornwall is a city, but it feels like a small town. Immediately surrounding Cornwall, you're out into country and farmland, and it's just makes sense for this area. We have that sort of small town rural feel, even though we're not.
Cornwall is kind of the perfect stop off for any Montreal or like any Quebecer who's going to Kingston, because Kingston has quite the burgeoning scene. So it's like, stop in Cornwall, grab beer, and then you could just stay on the country road and then hit Humble Beginnings and Windmill. And so every little town's starting to get a brewery, which is fantastic. We need more. In my opinion, where I live, I only have 2 right now. And so I'm hoping for more and more and more. And it does seem, booze is pandemic proof when you think about it. We didn't shut down. I know there's some countries that just completely shut down alcohol and tobacco productions. It's like, that's wild. Like, shutting down these guys these are their lives. How are you taking that away from them?
That would have been difficult to navigate for sure, because we're all in on this one, right? Both of us are here full time.
So it's crazy, and I know, I don't know if you guys delivered, but I do know a lot of Ontario breweries were doing home deliveries.
We do home deliveries, but we
within-
do very few. It's just city limits only, basically. We have a local delivery service people can work with, or if I've got the time, I'll actually go drop it off myself.
Okay.
But most people prefer to come here.
As well, during the pandemic, we found a lot of people, like, if they couldn't see their family but knew that they like craft beer, they'd call us and ask us to deliver, like, for Christmas or for a birthday. So we've done a lot of that.
We've done a lot of birthday
Yeah,
drop-offs.
we have, really, and it's
You
kind of
put
neat.
a knock on the door. Happy birthday, this is from...
Yeah, so that's been a lot of fun, too.
Now, early when the pandemic started, I'd said on these Facebook groups I'm part of, before Facebook became the toxic place it is now, you might not drink craft beer, but there is a craft beer drinker in your life. All these places have great merch. There's always a way to support a local business. And it's so simple to do, especially in Ontario. It's just go online, hit a few buttons, pump in your credit card number, and then there's beer or merch. That you
Yeah, for anybody that's doing online, for sure.
Yeah. What's number 2 here I'm trying?
Anton's Ghost.
Okay.
So Vienna-style lager.
What's the alcohol on this?
5.0, I think, on
Another
Anton's.
Anton's
light crushable.
5.3.
5.3, thank you.
Looks caramelly.
No, well, you'll see what you get in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
A toast.
Yeah.
Cling. It's that malt backbone I love.
Yeah, bread crust. That thing's like crust on toast. It's fantastic.
Oh,
And then
love
some
that stuff.
local hops in that one as well.
Yeah. I mean, no, you were saying something,
Oh,
Karen?
yeah.
She was doubting me on local hops.
Okay.
She gets the alcohol content right, I get the hops right, we're okay.
Hey, you're a team. That's what matters. As long as the team keeps going, so that's the important part. So yeah, Anton's Ghost. There's your Wind Blows Winter Warmer. There's the Raspberry Seal Goes. The naming convention. How'd you come up with that instead of just naming them blonde, lager, brown?
I just name them whatever I want to.
Well, no, Anton's has a bit of a story behind it.
Okay.
Like, everything seems to have a story behind it. Like the Cornwall lager, the label, we took the Cornwall Brewing Company's original label and their font, and we tried.
I tried to respect that while bringing a modern update to it. That was the inspiration for that. It was actually a beer that was around from 1908 to 1920, right?
Oh.
So tried to pay homage to that. Anton's Ghost is named after Anton Dreher, the guy who invented Vienna Lager. He had one of the biggest operations in Europe while that was going on, and this was me sort of chasing down how do you respectfully recreate a modern ingredient version of what he would have been producing back then. It was like chasing a ghost, right? So, there you go.
So the building's not haunted.
Not that we know of.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything in here, and I've been in here lots.
Yeah, it's funny because we're trying to, in the future, interview a brewery in the U.S. called Valcor, and it's supposedly haunted. I'm like, that's the show. That's all we're going to talk about. We're
interview's
not going to
gotta
talk
be
about the beer.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about being
It's got to be in the middle of the night.
So, yeah, no, that's awesome. I love the naming convention, and obviously you don't kind of just stick to the one style, but you stick to mostly more classic styles from what I'm seeing.
Classic and not. Like right now, like
Depends on the year, and it depends
on the
demand.
time of year, depends on the customer base.
We always try and have the lager in stock, and then we always try and have what we call a mid-range. So Anton's would be a mid-range, but we have 3 or 4 that we rotate in that style. We always try and have a wheat beer. In the summer, it's always salted lime goza, because we can't keep that one in stock. Right now, it's the raspberry goza, but we've done a cherry wheat. Mm-hmm. We've done mango wheat.
Done passion fruit.
Passion fruit, kumquat.
Yep.
Yeah. So, and then we have, we try and always have a stout. Mm-hmm. We always try and have an IPA. And then once we get those 5 done, then we kind of like, okay.
What can I play with? What can I do?
What else can Andy, what other time does he have to be able to do another beer?
Yeah.
Right? So.
I mean, you do have the multiple named fermenters behind us.
Mm-hmm.
What made you decide to name them that and not just 1, 2, 3, 4? You got Gertie Burt, Pearl. Where is that coming from as well?
They're named in honor of friends and relatives that have passed on before us. So this is the girls' side. Mm-hmm. This is the girls' side because previous to 2 owners, previous to us in this unit, it was a women's business hub.
Okay.
So we're kind of paying some homage to that. The guy's side is on the other side there, where they're all named after male relatives and or friends that have passed on. So they're kind of memorial tanks. But it's kind of cool when you're working in here to look up and think of the people that sort of got you here or influenced you, right?
That's wonderful to hear. I love hearing that kind of stuff. Is you know where you came from, you know what's important to you, and you're showing it in your passion with your brewery. So.
We try.
Yeah.
We laugh when people walk in. It's like, oh look, my name's on the tank. I'm like, you don't want your name on the tank.
Oh, that's I mentioned this last recording. Is Quebec is you got to close the brewery off to people. Like there has to be glass here. Whereas Ontario, we've seen a mix of closed off and open. Yep. Do you feel it's a little more convenient to kind of have the customer be able to see where it's all being made?
Yeah, people seem to really like that aspect of it. Our old retail was a little room over there that was closed off from everything. This was retail 2.0.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we decided to put it in here with the tap room or put the tap room in with the tanks, and people can hang out with them.
Yeah. And with things slowly reopening, I'm guessing you might add another table at some point if you can. If everything permits.
Good weather's coming, right?
Yeah, so we'll be outside.
Yeah, we'll put our tables outside and have some people out there.
Yeah, that's something that I personally like to do is just being on a terrace or a patio during the summer. Even if it's not super sunny out, but it's not piss pouring rain, I'm going to be drinking a beer outside.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Well, we've had people sit out there in the rain too. I'm like, are you
the
guys
snow.
Crazy?
and the snow,
yeah.
and the freezing cold.
Yeah.
There was a brewery up in the Yukon that wanted people to sit outside during the pandemic, so they did a discount. Whatever the temperature was below zero was your discount on your pints. So if it was 10 below, you got 10% off. 40 below, 40% off.
It's the Yukon too, so I mean, you could be looking at -40.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What's the first beer you ever brewed that made you decide like this is what I'm doing? Even if it was bad, you're like, you know what? Maybe let's try this again.
I don't think I had that moment.
No, Andy hasn't had too many bad beers. I think.
But even before I opened the brewery,
Sorry.
I don't know. I just like the process is fun. I mean, I taught biology, chemistry, physics, science, mathematics for 16 years ish before I came in here to do this. So it was it's applied science. It's a laboratory, but you also get to express your creativity there too. So I did it methodically and systematically. I went through different beer styles and tried to, what makes them what they are. And I did a whole series at one point where I was doing, single malt, single hop beers, changing the hop so I could get a feel for what each thing did on its own. Same thing with yeast. I played around for a long time, just for myself to figure out, what's my parameter space? What do I have here? What do these do? Yeah. What percentage do I like? What so it was a whole fun discovery session. It's just like anything else I do that I'm interested in. I'll systematically, methodically take a look at it, but it has to inspire joy. Otherwise, I'm not going to keep on doing it.
Yeah. So collabs that you've done, either local stuff, like you've grabbed coffee from the local coffee shop to make your stout or porter, or collabs with other breweries. What have you done? And then what are some that you'd like to do?
Oh, wow. So local ingredients, right? Working with a local hop yard is great. Finally got a chance to do that. We've been trying to do it for years. So we finally got the acreage together to get some local hops in our stuff and utilize them, which is fantastic because you get your terroir right there. Coffee and ingredients and stuff like that. Well, we used to source from a local coffee roaster, but he's now retired. So I'm going to have to figure out what to do next. I could roast it, but I'm not roasting all that coffee.
Not that coffee. That amount. And our latest one was for our International Women's Day beer. We partnered with Brave Noise. So we've brewed the Brave Noise Pale Ale. It's sitting, it will come out hopefully the end of the month.
26, yeah.
The 26th.
I'll have to be back for that.
Yeah. A lot of people are very excited. So we bring women in. It's an all-women brew crew. Andy obviously has to be here.
It's our International Women's Day Brew Crew. I think we've called them in past years. But.
Yeah. So they come in and they brew. All of them drink beer that were here, that were brewing. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. We have a lot of fun that day.
And then 2 local organizations that the proceeds from the beer are going to support had representatives come in here and hang out for a bit that day too and share some stories. So it's just a cool bringing together of community.
Yet again, we've been lucky enough to interview Aaron Broadfoot from Little Beast,
Little Beast,
we
That's awesome.
we see where everything's coming from, and as us, we're we need less people that look like me and you in the brewing industry, and more people who look like Karen, more LGBT, more BIPOC. That's what the brewing industry needs. So.
But it's not just you need more of them. They just need to be treated with respect and inclusivity, right? And even females. Like myself, I've had a few people where I'd tell them, they'd ask me a question, I'd tell them the answer, they wouldn't believe me. Andy would come and tell them the same thing word for word. And it's good, right? Not many, like I've been very fortunate because not many of those.
Yeah. Most of our customer base is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So. Yeah.
It is, unfortunately, there is a lot of toxicity in every industry.
Yep.
But you find more so in the beer community, and that's something that it looks like people are trying to achieve something new, and we can get past this. Like, this pandemic should have brought us together. Unfortunately, it didn't. But it's we have an opportunity to try and make things better. Like, why aren't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I don't know. One of the things that we did that was pretty fun. We had Ren Navarro come down here.
Mm-hmm. Ren's awesome.
2 years ago? It was just pre-pandemic.
Pre-pandemic,
The November before the pandemic,
yes.
I think. Anyway, absolutely fun and awesome event. It was originally just going to have her here to talk with whoever wanted to come and hang out and learn about her perspective. But ended up being a whole lot more. It was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up partnering with the city and the mayor to bring in her and Tariq Haddad from Peace by Chocolate. Really, really fun.
And well received.
Yet again, like when we had to shift the show personally to doing interviewing influencers and stuff, Ren was on the top of our list as a Canadian beer influencer.
For sure.
So we had interviewed Ren a month before the Black Lives Matter movement really started exploding, and then we've also had T. Drinks, who is a big supporter in the Black Lives Matter community. So that's with us is I'm your typical bro looking bearded white guy who drinks beer, but I've also had friends of color since I've been 3 years old. There's no question about to me it's I say I don't see race. Obviously, it's clear I've never personally seen my friends go through the crap that I have. Now, like, my mind's being more woken up to it, and it's like, well, dude, I never noticed that. Like, why did you never tell me? It's like, well, because you're a supporter, you're an ally. I'm like, but you got to tell me these things.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I can fix myself.
You need to be made aware of what your position of privilege is, so that you can start to understand what you've got that they don't, that they need to have.
Yeah. But it's like I said, why didn't the pandemic bring us together, and it couldn't? So it sucked. Okay, so this is going to be a road trip, but collabs you'd like to do possibly with other breweries, even maybe going down to the U.S. and doing, you mentioned In-Laws prior. I mentioned Maple. Like, would you love to do a collab with those guys?
Yeah, we've been down to Maple. We go hang out at In-Laws whenever we can. Collabs, I'd have to get out of here. We run a kind of a different model of brewery. When we started up, it's really a lean brewery. I am back of house, so I don't get out of here too much to go anywhere or do anything. And that's the way we run it. So we're not your sort of traditional brewery. We've managed our growth to 0% for 5 years now by saying no fairly often, because we're as big as we can be without changing to a different model of how we do things. So that's kind of where we have the privilege of existing there, but we also get in trouble a lot for it because people don't understand. Right? What do you mean you're not predicated on growth? What do you, right? That's not our thing. That's not why we're here. I've built the brewery so it's scalable. So, the next owner that, wants to come in and buy it and send us to retirement is welcome to. They can do whatever they want. It's built, but that's not the way we're running it.
One of your other collabs, I noticed dog treats.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have a local couple that take some of our grains at the spent grains from the Cornwall Lager Brew, and they'll make dog treats for it. Bring them in here, and people buy them here. So People love the dogs love them, sorry. Our favorite, we don't have our favorite flavor in right now, which is bacon cheddar.
Oh.
That is the one that sells the quickest.
I might even try that. I mean, it's, yeah. I love breweries that are allowed to have dogs. It's so great. It's,
Yep.
you know, bring your dog, sit down, as long as your dog's not a crazy barking chihuahua that's attacking everybody.
Yep, exactly.
We want a chill dog.
Yeah,
That's it.
and I mean, the people that make the dog treats will bring their dog in. They just realized not too long ago that you can bring your dog
Yes,
in.
which is
Sometimes
odd,
we don't tell people things.
Yeah.
So anyway, they now bring their one dog in and hangs out. And we're happy to provide water for a dog that's here. And then there's the bags of dog treats, but there's also little sample ones there that if somebody wants to try one with their dog, they can. I guess the other thing is we didn't really say is, I guess like most breweries though, but we really focus on getting all of our waste products aren't really waste products. They can be used for other stuff. So there's a local farm that takes the spent yeast, the spent grains, and feeds their animals with it. Because spent grain is a perfect animal feed for a ruminant, right? For something with multiple stomachs. It's high in protein, decent fat content, and dietary fiber content to it too. And cows and sheep can metabolize yeast even when it's not dried out, and they can metabolize a lot of it. So they can utilize, and the spent hops too. They utilize all of that. So we basically generate pretty much nothing to a landfill from here. And with our water in here, we've always been really careful about water, but every year we always figure out something else we can do. We've got the lowest water to beer ratio that I know of, which is kind of cool too.
Yeah. Beer number 3 I'm doing here.
Raspberry Surcer, it looks like.
No,
No?
Comfy
Oh, it's
Sweater.
Comfy Sweater.
Comfy Sweater.
So that's 100% local hops from Ron there. That is don't call it a bitter, call it a UK style pale ale.
Yeah. And sometimes it's the wording that makes all the difference, because people assume if you say bitter, it's more bitter than an IPA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
It's so.
So that's this year's hops. Not as much nose on it, but the flavor's all there. It's just a really delightful English pale ale that you can pretty much pair with anything.
All right, as we do,
Yeah,
a toast.
Cheers.
Ooh, that's delightful.
Yeah. That is locally grown Willamette
That is
hops.
deceiving too.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, nice marmalade, a little bit of summer savory note in there that usually comes out of most of his hops that he grows. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Great name too, Comfy Sweater. I
Yep.
mean, it's, if you're a Canadian, you need a comfy sweater, a comfy hoodie, or
Eight months
like
of the year.
Yeah. So I'm sure, being a smaller community, obviously Cornwall, tons and tons of macro drinkers.
Yep.
You get that new macro drinker through the door. What are those 2 gateway beers that you're like, try these?
Cornwall Lager.
Yeah.
Welcome to Cornwall.
And then it depends.
It's not so much here now. It used to be.
Yeah, no.
Now it's when we decide to take on a new tap account, that doesn't seem like a place where our beer really should go. First question is, we go like, do we want to? And then we go, all right, let's try it. And then we usually say, why did you do this? And for them, they've had our beer, they know it's local, and they want to, try it at their place to see if they can convince some of their drinkers to have it. So we had a story last week of a place that we just put on tap where the one fellow in there drinks Black Label, and that's all he ever drinks. And he was the first. They gave him tasters of the Cornwall Lager because they go, it's craft beer. I'm not, right? And then it was the guy ordered the first pint of it.
He was the first guy of that group.
Of that group to order a pint.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we find that if people say they don't like craft beer, 9 times out of 10, what they've been given is an IPA. And that is not the gateway from macro brews to craft beer.
Yeah.
So, so we no, try this. Or we also have a lot like raspberry goza or anything fruity. Well, that's a girl's beer. I'm like, just try it.
Yeah.
And then the look on their face when they try it and they don't want to admit that they like it, it's funny.
Yeah. The other fun thing is the gradation of people that come in and they start with the Cornwall Lager and then they'll come in one week and they maybe switch out a couple of cans on a 6-pack, and then they'll slowly graduate to other things, or you'll see them sort of go and drift back and go, like it's just kind of fun to see that evolution.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned you're always busy, but you finally have, let's say, a couple of weeks to take a beercation you've never taken before.
A couple of weeks.
Weeks.
Wow,
And
you
at
so
least we
extended
get a couple
it.
days.
2 weeks to do a beercation you've never taken before.
You know what? I don't know. That's too much of a mental dissonance for me to think
we're
about.
lucky. We have a trip planned in September, and it's already planned so that Andy can arrange around our schedule around it, right? And that will set us back probably 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, by the time you catch everything up and stuff. But our brewery has certain slow times and certain really busy times. You can't leave during a busy time. There is no way.
No.
During those slow times, we can get away for a couple of days, 4 days.
Yeah.
Around January, we can get away for a week. But that's about it. But if we did, Beercation?
Where do we start?
No, there's a couple places. Germany would be fantastic, first of all, just because the beer is just, it's an integral part of the culture and the food and it just all goes together, right? So going and not Oktoberfest, going and hanging out in like Bamberg, where you get to hop along to different breweries there and have a bunch of smoked beers and eat some sausage and like do that. Or maybe, Belgium, maybe. That's sort of more cheese and beer. But I really love the Belgians' way of thinking of, I'm just making something tasty. I don't care what pigeonhole you want to put it into, right? Just drink it. It tastes good. Maybe something like that. Something traditional would be cool.
Just to get away.
I've always said Belgium because I have the design of a monk, bald head, beard, so I think I'd fit right in with the robes.
Yep. Put you in a robe and put you in a monastery and you can drink Pater's beer all day. Yeah.
And then Germany with the Reinheitsgebot there, the German purity law. It's like that's authentic beer, and most craft beers in Canada you can't add adjectives at all. You can't add preservatives. It doesn't happen. The smoothie beers, but that's
I was going to
it,
say,
so.
no, I know a bunch of things, people do the contrary, but anyway, they normally get made fun of. So
Yeah.
Do it as naturally as possible is what most craft brewers are, if you want to use the word craft, are really sort of focused on, right? Same thing here. It's just your 4 ingredients. It's not pasteurized. It's not filtered. We do everything very carefully to try and make sure that everything turns out the way it should.
And we let the beer tell us when it's ready rather than us tell the beer when it's ready or when it has to go out the door. So,
I mean, clearly, any brewery, a lot of brewers, the beer will speak for itself. Everybody's going to end up hiring somebody pretentious sometimes who thinks that they're better than the customer, but and sometimes the customer isn't always right, to be honest. Somebody who worked customer service for decades, sometimes the customer's not all right, but the beer will speak for itself. And if you're one of those, Untappd negative Nancy's, don't be. Just
really.
let your palate expand.
Just relax and try not to be so high on yourself.
exactly. And the other thing is, don't rate a beer poorly because you don't like it or it's not your style, right? People don't always get that.
But at the end of the day, this is all social media ratings.
Yes, it is.
Honest to God,
Yeah.
who cares?
Yeah.
You can say what you want, you can do what you want, you can watch the world burn if you want. At the end of the day, you have to live with yourself for it. So go ahead and do whatever. I haven't looked at Untappd in 5 years, I don't think, or
People
more.
would get upset that we weren't adding new beers to it. I'm like,
we don't have the account.
time.
Somebody else adds it for us. I don't even know who does it. Anyway, so it doesn't matter. We know what we're doing. We know what we're making. We've got our local support.
Yeah, and we've been very fortunate with that.
We've been able to run the brewery the way we want to run the brewery, which is if local pays the bills, why would you ever do anything else? Yeah.
Now, I know, thankfully, where I am in Quebec, we do have beer stores, like Dépanneurs, and I'm starting to see them in Toronto and Ottawa. If there were a local Cornwall beer store, could you see yourselves putting, hey, can we put your cans in the store?
It would depend on who owns it and what they're doing. Really honestly, for us, it's about relationships, right? The places where we have there are 3 rules if we're going to do something around here. A, does it support us? Okay, well, that's a no-brainer. That's kind of the first one. But B, is it important for the community? And that can be in terms of, is it somebody that we actually respect what they're doing? Or do we think that they just, no, this is a bad vibe, this is a bad feel, this is not fit with our ethos, right? And then 3, is it just plain fun? Because if it fits those 3, we're going to seriously consider the option, right? So it would depend on who's doing it and why.
I have faith that Ontario is going to start opening more beer convenience stores, and that's super important is like, yeah, the LCBO is great for their selection sometimes, but I can't get you guys at the LCBO that I've seen.
The
so
LCBO is for volume producers,
Yeah.
right? Which we are not. So it would make zero sense for us to make more beer that then has to be packaged in a certain way and wrapped in a certain way and sent to this warehouse to then be stored there and farmed out to stores that you have to look store by store for your metrics and see whether or not you're satisfying them, all the while making a lot less on what meager margins you have.
Yeah.
So it wasn't, that was always, the LCBO and or the beer store for us were always backup. If this doesn't work here and doesn't pay the bills, then we've got these avenues, right?
Yeah.
But thankfully we've never even needed to consider it.
And for somebody like myself, I prefer going to breweries over.
Well, and we know, like, from the time when the beer gets made to the point that it walks out of here, we know how it's been treated, right? And we know that it's been treated very well. And
No, it's been treated by me.
So what's this last beer I'm trying here?
Stop. Wind blows.
Wind blows. So that's a winter warmer, right? Yeah. Big raisins and brown sugar, but it was aged in bourbon barrels for a year. So you're gonna get big bourbon finish on it. You'll pick up some vanilla. Some of the brown sugar that you taste is from that as well. And you'll just get that like unmistakable bourbon finish at the end
nose
of
is
it.
beautiful.
It's a dangerous beer.
Yes.
It's 8.5%.
And that's why I'm only having a taster, because you don't drink and drive.
For bourbon
Yeah.
lovers and
Yeah, as a bourbon drinker, this is, wow.
good.
Yeah, just a little bit of raisin, as you mentioned. It's oof.
The raisins, all the malt in there, because it's a traditional English winter warmer, right? Which features those raisin notes. And then it seemed really appropriate to bourbon barrel age that, because I felt the two profiles would fit together and make something fun.
Yeah, this is, a pint of this would be difficult. This is...
It's a sipper.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. You know, the same thing we mentioned Erin before is after we'd wrapped up our interview with her, she's like, here, try this wine barrel-aged beer. And I just take a sip, and I'm like, oh, we're going to be here a little bit. For my videographer, Phil, I'm like, we're going to be here a little bit because this is 11%.
Yeah.
And I have to drive in an hour, so this beer is going to take an hour to drink.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, for sure. Sip and enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you get somebody like me, well, not somebody like me, but a craft beer drinker comes by, tries your beers, buys a bunch. Friends in the area that you're like, go here, they also make fantastic beer.
In-laws, once we can go across the border again, but that used like Cornwall is a border town, right?
Yeah.
So like we've got Aquisossnay, which is like 3 regions in Aquisossnay that very often do daily trips back and forth. A lot of Cornwallites do daily trips back and forth. And a lot of people have relatives like just on the other side of the border because of history. So we very much were used to more or less easy transit across the border on a regular basis. COVID, I think probably one of the biggest effects of COVID around here was not having that border access. Like there was a friend of mine, Ian seen his mother throughout all of COVID, right? And she's just across the river. Like it's just, it was a big change for things here. So border opens up again. Like in-law would be a place where I would definitely go hang out because they're wonderful people. And like you hang out there. It's the barn is the brewery, and on a nice weather day, you're sitting outside at all these. Well, even in the cold you can too. But on a nice weather day, you sit outside these tables. Watch all the locals come up with growlers and get their growlers of beer and go back in their cars and go home, and everybody else enjoying a pint out there, and it's just super relaxed.
Sometimes they have a food truck.
Yeah, on site to pair and do stuff like that. It's just a fun place.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, we were lucky enough to speak to Paul at Kitchissippi, and he had the food trucks out there when we went, and I'm like, lobster. What? Lobster tacos? Let's grab those and let's drink a Wonder Woman and woo!
Yep.
So,
Oh yeah, for sure.
yeah. Could you see yourselves maybe during the summer when things reopen having a food truck or two out there?
Well, Cornwall just allowed food trucks again. So So
What was that?
I don't know. I'll look in a minute. Yeah, it would be kind of cool. Cornwall's taken the model of mobile food trucks. So think the ice cream man, like, a little noise playing, like the tune is the Saints go marching in with a local truck that, fry truck that drives around town. So you just, hear. We've had people out at the patio that have flagged them down and grab something to eat. So. Yeah.
And sometimes people will go get food and then bring it here.
Oh, that's super popular.
Yeah.
Or have it delivered here, like grab a pizza, order a pizza and have it delivered here, so.
Yeah.
That's what I do like about the taproom environments is, like, if you don't want to do a kitchen or can't have a kitchen is, just order out and we'll clean up your mess. We don't care. Just stay here, drink beers. And
bring in some local food that you're supporting the local economy with too. It's perfectly cool.
Yeah. And, just local pizzeria down the place. Just order pizza there. Or I'm sure you have numbers and stuff for people who are visiting like me who are, well, I'm hungry now. Oh, well, here's some phone numbers.
Yeah, well, usually the first question is, what kind of food do you want?
Yes.
And from there, we can narrow down to a good choice. So.
That's awesome. I personally have no other questions. It's been a fantastic talk today. I really appreciate both of you taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to speak with us
thank
about
you.
your brewery.
You guys have been persistent and polite, so we're like, all right, we've got to make this happen.
Yeah, you've always been on my list of it helps that you're an hour and 10 minutes away from my house, but you've always been on the list. I mean, we go to Ottawa, we traveled to Toronto, Barrie, but you've always been on my list of when we were starting the show. And then it's like, oh yeah, we're going to do it in March. Ooh, the world shut down.
Yep. Yep.
Oh, okay, things are open. Yeah, we'll plan something. And the world shut down again.
Yep. Nobody wants to ask what's next anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, I thank you both very, very much for taking time and speaking with you today. So for those who have never been or those who want to check you guys out, let them know where they can find you.
Go ahead.
We're in Cornwall, on Cumberland Street, 412 is the taproom address. You can find us at a fair number of local spots around town too, and a handful of spots just outside of town. That's it. You got to come to Cornwall and see the Cornwall environment.
Social medias?
We do Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Yes.
And
that's
it.
That's all.
Okay, that's it.
So we're going to add everything in the show notes, so it'll be clickable links in the show notes below on the YouTube, as well when it comes out in the podcast format the day later. As for us, allbeerinside.com is the website, at allbeerinside on all social media, and as I say at the end of all episodes, drink craft, not crap.